So this is a video I've had in mind ever since that we read some Nietzsche, and I think it's very important for young people to take this into consideration, which is if you're looking for life advice, don't listen to people who themselves aren't happy. So if we're talking about Nietzsche, I don't think that this is worth entirely throwing out everything that Nietzsche has said, but if you look at the life of him as a man, he was a neurotic, unhappy, and a very degenerate individual. He spent a lot of his time in brothels and died of syphilis and also had a mental breakdown towards the end of his life. So you need to ask yourself, is this really the type of person that you want to get a worldview from? So if you're looking at philosophy from a basic perspective, what exactly are the questions that philosophy is trying to answer? And I think the most fundamental one should be how to live a happy, fulfilling life. And this isn't happy in the sense of hedonism, but happy in the sense of actualization, fulfillment, and becoming finding a purpose in your life, right? So you look at Nietzsche, and I think that a lot of his work falls short in that regard. And you can extend this to plenty of other modern day people. So this might be a low-hanging fruit, but there's a certain individual. But Vaush is just one example of a myriad of leftists who you could say are really not happy people. They strike you as neurotic, possibly even autistic, and very unhappy with their lives. So if they're going to shape an entire worldview, but in the end they themselves are not happy, is that really something worth following yourself? It doesn't really pass the smell test. You need to be logical in the most basic sense about these things. If you're going to construct an entire worldview and follow it and supposedly live it, you would hope that it is making you a happier person. And if it is not, if it is making you more neurotic, it is making you require antidepressants and all these things, it's probably not a good worldview. So somebody brought some interesting statistics up to me. You have this is a self-selected Pew Research data, so take it with a slight grain of salt, but I've seen very similar charts before, and basically it says that mental illness is much higher among liberals than it is among conservatives. Plenty of reasons that I could imagine for this, but I could see at the very basic level, look at all of the liberal types that you know. They're very neurotic, they're on antidepressants, they're not happy with life. And then look at your average conservative, they're usually strong, self-confident, and have a certain mode of ownership over the direction of their life. Not to say that they have everything figured out entirely, but they do strike you as more happy, well-together people. And I don't mean this as far as income and life success either. I mean, I know plenty of liberals that are highly intelligent and successful, but they are not happy people, right? They end up manifesting in neuroticism and other forms of mental illness, depression, etc., which is unlike the conservative who, even if they are on the lower end, even if they are more poor, they usually tend to be more religious, more traditional, and therefore more happy as well. So I don't know if this is the be-all, end-all for traditional conservatism being a more happy and fulfilling way of life, but it is an interesting perspective. And then one other person I wanted to take a look at was this guy, Jordan Peterson. So many young men follow Jordan Peterson, but if you look at him and his life, is he a happy individual? No, he's incredibly depressed, and perhaps this is a sign that his philosophy is not perfectly fleshed out in the way that it should be in order to create a life for you that is totally fulfilling, happy, etc. Now, one thing that I will give Peterson credit for, because I have, in fact, read 12 Rules of Life, and I think the most interesting part is there's a certain rule that he does not follow very well, which is the rule, it's make sure your house is in perfect order before you criticize the world. Now, I think this is one of the best pieces of advice for any young man. If you're going to find a way to improve the world, you must start with improving yourself. So once you do everything that is in your power to be a healthier, happier person, then you can start looking at ways to improve society. So if you are going to live an unhealthy, self-destructive lifestyle and then blame society for that, are you really worth listening to? So once again, I'm not totally discounting everything that Jordan Peterson has said, but I think listening to a person who is so mentally unwell, depressed, and altogether neurotic is not going to have all of the answers for you. So for any young men looking for a role model, I recommend you find somebody who is happy and self-satisfied with life and talk to them about what they find to be important. And obviously I'm biased, but I would think that most of these people, as you meet them, they're going to be more family-oriented, God-oriented, conservative-minded people. So if you're on a path looking for guidance, is it really the best thing to find a person who wants to kill themselves, but they're going to tell you all of these ways in which the world could be better? No, they have not put their house in perfect order, so to speak. So why does their opinion on the world matter? And I'm not, once again, disclaimer, do not just discount a person's opinion just because they aren't happy, but you need to really take everything that they say with a grain of salt. Because if they are not totally secure in themselves, if they are not reaping the fruits of their own philosophy in a good way, then perhaps their philosophy is not bearing good fruit. So remember this whenever you see somebody trying to tell you something, trying to give you advice, and you look at their life and it's totally in disarray, totally out of order. They're not happy, they're on antidepressants, all of these things. Really consider this before you are going to give what they say any type of attention. And that means even old philosophers, right? Look at somebody like Nietzsche. He was a prime example, but even other people like Schopenhauer. He had no family, no kids. He was sort of a NEET as well. And, he ends up having this philosophy that is, this is a drastic simplification, but he says life is suffering. Now, is this the type of person you want to be taking advice from? Maybe not. And to think of other philosophers, here's somebody, Evola. Now, you look at Evola, he didn't really have a family or children of any kind. But if you look at the kind of things that he says, he seems like a very strong force of will and a very self-confident person. He has no doubts about the world. He sees it in a specific way, and he's totally content to living in that way 100%. And from this, I don't get any sense of neuroticism from Evola. And obviously he has his critiques of the modern world, but he has already put his house in order, therefore he is entitled to make those critiques. And you can compare and contrast various different thinkers, but I would say ultimately the people you most want to listen to are the people who are the happiest, the people who have found some purpose, some meaning in life. And those are the people who are going to help you find some meaning in your own life and find some type of guidance. And to summarize, I think that those types of things are going to be ultimately found in family, God, and overall relationships with your fellow man, as far as nationalistic, racial, and these types of things that unite men together under a banner of race, nation, God, and family. And these are the traditional values that have historically made people derive meaning in life. And I think that these are the type of things that people are going to have to return to if they want to abandon the neuroticism of modernity, if they want to actually become happy and actually find fulfillment in life again. And I don't want to claim to myself to be a prime example of this, but I find myself very, very surprisingly unfazed by living in the modern world. I think I am a very happy, well-adjusted person, and when I tell this to people, oftentimes they're surprised. They're like, "Oh, how could you possibly not be depressed living in 2021?" Well, this is the product of having a better, healthier, less dissonant type of mindset. Now, once again, you should still not listen to me specifically because I'm a happy person, but I think it gives me a little bit more force behind my argument than a person who is going to tell you to do all these things, yet they want to kill themselves. So keep this in mind in your life. Try and find good role models, good happy people, and I guess that's my overall advice. So don't listen to unhappy people, listen to happy people.